Let me now recognize Senator Kaine.
We're the Senate Armed Services Committee. It's not you guys and us guys. We're Americans. We're Americans. This committee, we're all Americans. We might have different political parties and different political views. Criticism is an American right, and we ought to be critical when we need to be, and we can have different views about what criticisms are fair or not, but it's not you guys and us guys in this room. We're all Americans trying to serve the public, and I hope we will act that way. I do think the discussion, about lessons learned from Afghanistan can't just be punted to a commission that's going to come back with answers later, because we've spent a lot of time around this committee table and we have views. I'm not an expert. For those who want to read the report that has been provided by state to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, members who aren't on the committee probably didn't know that report had been provided. I think you're entitled to it, so you should just ask to see that report. And if any of you have a challenge getting it, Senator Shaheen and I and Senator Rounds are on the Foreign Relations Committee. Come to us and we'll go to bat for you. A lot of reports are out there that we can see, but you never know that it's been given to another committee. Well, now we do know that's been provided to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and if folks want to read it, ask to see it. And if you have trouble, come to the SFRC members and we'll work to make sure that you see it. The mistakes that seem the most obvious ones to me, and yet we need to dig into it even further. The mistakes that seem most obvious is, one, President Trump should never have negotiated a peace deal with the Taliban and cut out the Afghan government. It basically threw them under the bus. It committed to a deal that they had no ownership in, that they found to be unacceptable, and that caused a huge loss of Afghan morale for the U.S. to negotiate a withdrawal with the Taliban without including the Afghan government. Who thought that was a good idea? Who came up with that idea of not inviting the Afghan government to participate in the withdrawal agreement? And then the second agreement that goes more on the Biden administration's shoulders is there were a variety of scenarios presented to the administration about the Afghan military's capacity and how strong they would be. And some were really pessimistic, some were kind of middle of the road, and some were quite optimistic. And what we heard from the DOD and administration witnesses who came before us were the optimistic ones, that the Afghan military would be very strong. And we now know that the administration was being given pessimistic estimates as well. And when you get a range of estimates, you shouldn't just accept the rosy one. And I think that was clearly a mistake. Now, even with those mistakes, if there had been a proposal before this committee or before Congress to do what would have had to be done to stay longer, put more American troops in, I can't imagine that would have gotten support on either side of the aisle in this committee, in Congress, either house. That would have been necessary to stay longer. But the rosy scenarios about what the Afghan military would do probably led to some mistakes at the end. I mean, we should have planned on a worst case scenario, not on a rosy case scenario. And I think that was a mistake. And I think we got to own it, because people who are watching at home, they don't want to just see, well, we'll have a commission that will come back and give us some recommendations down the road. So anyway, to my committee members, if you want to see the report that has been given to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, ask for it. And if you have trouble getting it, ask me and I'll try to help. Ms. Abercrombie, we talked a lot about some of the things you'd focus on if confirmed. Can you expand on, for my colleagues, some of the acquisition strategy you talked about, error reduction, incentive structures for the contracting process? Can you share some of those ideas?
Thank you, Senator, for the question, and thanks for the time in your office the other week. So, Senator, if confirmed, I think I've got a few priorities, and that would be certainly making sure we get equipment at speed and scale to the warfighter, and so that does look to reduce timelines, both by ensuring we're using the flexible acquisition authorities that have been provided by Congress and the new acquisition pathways that have been implemented by DOD. It's making sure we're training the workforce properly to apply all those and make sure that it is being applied across the department, sharing lessons learned, and also reducing the barriers to the non-traditional suppliers, making sure we have competition in the marketplace, so to speak, attracting smaller businesses, traditionally disadvantaged businesses, et cetera, potentially by reducing regulatory barriers and making sure those pathways are clear.
I look forward to working with you on those and supporting both your nominations.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Kaine. Senator Butt, please.